Dawlish Town Council planning meeting. I'm just checking the date. Yes, it is. It's the 9th of December. It's 7 o'clock. Okay. The normal information will take as read, but can I just make a special mention of the fact that if you have a mobile phone with you, if you could put it on silent for me. And yeah, if we are going to be recorded, we are being, I was just going to say live stream, but we're not, we're being recorded, so be mindful of that. And obviously, the Freedom of Information Act and the Data Protection Act are in place from that point of view. Can I ask, first of all, if we have any public participation? I don't believe we have anyone down to speak with us.
No one's asked to.
Okay, thank you. So first thing to say is apologies for absence, please.
Apologies received from Councillors Foden, Heath, James, Tamlin, Taylor and Woods.
Okay. Wow. Are we happy to, I think we just take a quick vote to note. Thank you. Right, so we haven't got a part two. Any declarations of interest from the members here tonight? Any of the items in front of us?
I think I'll probably put on note a declaration of interest with the local plan because of my position on Team Bridge Executive.
Okay.
But I will ask to still speak, but not necessarily to vote. Good evening.
Hello. Good evening. Just apologies for absence, and we're just thinking in terms of declarations of interest, Councillor Foden, so I don't know if you've had a chance to have a look at the agenda. I'm hoping you have.
Okay, I have looked at the agenda. So,
are there any declarations of interest?
Okay. No.
And just for the record, Chairman, we'll retract Councillor Foden's apologies.
Absolutely, thank you. I don't believe we've received any dispensations,
No.
so the minutes for the last meeting on the 18th of November, members had a chance to have a look, and are you happy for me to sign them? Yes, thank you. Okay, any correspondence or any details that we've received on our previous items?
To read them out just for the benefit of the...
Yes.
Applications granted in support of this council's recommendations: 21-01378 HOU, 42 Exeter Road, extension to existing balcony, 20/01080 HOU, 7 The Old School, Old Town Street, a single storey extension to form an annex, 21-02050 HOU, 19 Henty Avenue, single storey rear extension. Applications granted contrary to this council's recommendation: 21-01246 Full, Lafalaise, 9 Old Timoth Road.
That's
New dwelling.
Did they say why?
Have to look at the decision note. Haven't got that to hand.
No worries.
But I can certainly find out and inform members after. And 21-01248 Full, Lafalaise, 9 Old Timoth Road, new dwelling. And applications refused in support of this council's recommendation: 21-00084 Full, 23 Bad Lake Hill, Dawlish, for 4 dwellings. And that is it, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Okay. We have no members of the public with us wanting to speak, so I'll move on to kind of the first item, as it were, which is the Team Bridge Local Plan, Part 3. We have until the 24th of January 2022 to submit our comments for this, so I'm minded that we can possibly go into all the minutiae of that this evening, and as we've done with Part 1, that members are given the time to look at this and come back to me with their own feedback and their own thoughts. I've already had a look through, I've made some kind of notes myself. I thought the best way is to ask for you to get those items back to me, email to me. I was going to say Christmas, but we've actually got a planning meeting on the 6th of January 2022. I know we don't want to think about it.
So that would be
And that will give us time then to get it ready for full council and in time to get it back in good time for the 24th. So that seems like a plan. Councillor Morgan.
Could I just check what we're looking at really is that which affects Dawlish and Dawlish Parish?
Absolutely.
Not everything. Because I've been looking as well, it takes hours.
Absolutely, and then there are some items to see in each of the areas that at least we can have a comment about, with the renewable energy, etc. And I think it's, you know, if we can make our comments and if you can get them to me or you get an idea of what you want to say, it might be it's the same for all of us, I'm not sure, but everyone's view will be maintained as of last time. Councillor Morgan.
I would just like to make a remark that one item under the heading of Tinmouth also says within Dawlish Parish. So
That's
why
right.
doesn't it just say Dawlish? Sorry, that's just me.
That's right, because it's Dawlish occupied Tinmouth.
Yes.
Pardon?
Because it's Dawlish occupied Tinmouth. There's an
We're
area.
going into Ukraine now, are we?
Because there is such confusion with the difference in the parish boundary, the county boundary, the district boundaries, there's an area that is colloquially known as Dawlish occupied Tinmouth, where they regard themselves as Tinmouth, but it's actually part of Dawlish.
Yes.
So we will be looking at that.
Acknowledge it, do they?
But we will be looking at that. That means that you
Yes.
can comment on that one as well, from that point of view. So can I see show of hands that you're happy with that and but from the point of view of the deadlines? Yeah. Okay. Great.
For January.
January 6th is the deadline. I'm going to try. I'm minded to try and get things done by Christmas, I think. But
If I may, Chair, just
Yeah.
in terms of the agenda needing to go out for that early January meeting.
Yeah.
One, two, three.
We'll have to go out after.
Would it be possible if members could get comments to yourself by the 29th of December, as the agenda would need to be published thereafter?
am I right in thinking it needs to be going to full council?
I didn't know if you wanted the sort of the first draft to come to planning first before going on to. I mean, it's up to yourself, but if that was how you wanted to play it, it needs to be by then to be included with this.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. So it would give me a chance to have a lovely Christmas bit of homework. That's fine.
Nothing like that.
If I may, with my reading of the terms of reference and the powers devolved to this committee, it technically doesn't need to go back to full council,
Okay.
but I think it is a good idea that it does, because it then highlights what we're doing and gives better publicity to our responses.
I would say it doesn't just do that, it draws the attention of all the other councillors, because we're only part of the council. It's a corporate body and they should all be involved.
It gives an underline to it, doesn't it, from that point of view? Yeah, I'm happy for it to go full council anyway. So there we go. We have a new deadline, but I'm happy with that. So that's the 29th of December. So items back to me by that date, please. Okay, let's move on to the actual items on the agenda that we're looking at this evening. And the first one is 2102-386, and it's full planning application to 35 the Strand, and this is the re-roofing of the rear extension.
This one didn't work for me on the agenda, so I didn't manage to get back to it.
So as I understand it, this is near the Red Cross shop. The doorway for this building is near the Red Cross shop. As you can see, it's at the upper end of the bowling green there on the map.
Bowling greens, yeah.
Almost looks like
Yeah, I discovered it last week.
the old Aston. Yes.
It's not just, I can't quite see what the difference is.
What they're wanting to do is to re-roof the rear extension, and they're looking to re-roof it in reclaimed slate and the materials to match.
Since I couldn't look it up on the web, can we just see what the application was about? Is it because it's old, or I assume it is, just needs re-roofing?
We haven't got listed building consent for the. Yes, we have.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we have. Sorry. Yeah, it's listed building because it's part of the old part, there you go, from the photographs, you can see it's,
I couldn't see any of this, you see.
yeah. So the intention is to use reclaimed slate tile, so it's like for like, as it were, and re-roof it. I don't believe there's any material change to the property when I look through it.
I should think that gully might be the next door is a good point for water inlets.
Yeah, it looks like there's quite a few little patching up of the roof in the past, and that's probably what they're wanting to correct from that point of view, and I would imagine that chimney's flashing probably needs replacing, but that's what it's about. Any comments from members? Councillor Ridley?
If I may, Chair, I think it's an excellent idea and they should get on with it forthwith, and it sounds like they're doing all the right things to keep it in keeping. So I would like to propose for this and the next one, and take them both together, that we have no objection.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay. I don't think we've got anything further to report on that one, so can I ask members for the vote on that one, please?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, let's move on now to 14 Barton Villas. That's 21.02523. This is a variation of conditions, and it relates to the windows and the skylights, conditions 4 and 6 as it happens. And as I understand it, it's all about the building regs, timber versus the building regs. I think in the past, plastic windows or the UPVC or whatever they are, windows have been put in. And they've found the solution is a heritage design that's actually in keeping with others on the actual road. So they're hopeful that they can leave the windows that they put in place, and not that it has to be wooden windows that have got to go in. These ones are actually a modern version and longer lasting. So I think they're asking for an allowance on the conditions so that the windows that they put in, which are identical to the others and the specs perfectly okay for building regs, that they're allowed.
That's an impressive piece of, sorry if I may, that's an impressive piece of research to go along and find every window and log what it is. I like that.
Yeah. Councillor Morby.
It's a row of villas which were built in sort of mid to late 1800s. It's a shame they were never listed years ago.
Yeah.
They've had many alterations. But yes, I've looked at this recommended manufacturer's windows. It seems to be a good compromise. It is in a conservation area, of course. And looking at those, subject to the conservation area conservation officer's approval, I would see no objection.
I think the suggestion of the application for change of condition gives us the answer of the conservation officer's idea. I mean, it's I suppose there's a lot of summary in that, perhaps some more good, but the fact that because of the quality of them and the fact that they look good and they're actually going to last well, so it seems a good solution for a heritage building from that point of view, I think. And that might be the way forward with possibly other properties as well, as long as they look like.
Far more attractive than a lot of things that happen in the town.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, any other comments from members? Councillor Woodford.
There is a long-running debate in the town about the use of replacing wooden windows with single-paned wooden windows that don't actually keep the heat in. So whilst also referring to the conservation officer, I would also like to refer to the climate change officer.
Because if they're UPVC, could they also be double glazed?
Correct.
Yeah.
The chances are that these could be as well. In the past, I've used timber windows, not where I am now, and I was able to have double glazed panels in those.
Which is fantastic.
So it would be nice to know if these were double glazed.
And I think that is where if we get the climate change officer also passing comment on the insulation capacity of the proposed windows, then that will help if we get a situation as we've had with several buildings where the conservation officer says, no, you can't put double glazing in there, don't spoil the look of it. but we need to get these places double glazed.
Okay, I think that's a fair comment from that point of view. It makes absolute sense with climate emergency declared both here and at our fellow council at Seabridge, so,
It says top bit on the Heritage Rose article.
yeah.
It doesn't specifically say the double glazed.
No, it
but
doesn't.
does say energy efficiency.
Yeah.
So, something about it.
Councillor Foden.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Councillor Wrigley. I think energy efficiency should come first before the look of the window, because we are in a climate emergency. But also, I'd like to say that I'm quite happy for the application for the conversion and extension of 3 flats to form 8 flats.
Yes.
Because it all helps with available accommodation in small flats for local people who are desperate for something the right size and the right price.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Morwood.
It already has been changed. There's been work going on for a year or more now. There was some upset in the beginning because I think most flats which have been made into one of these houses before was 6, but anyway, they've got 8 and a lift, I think, into this one. It's now down to the detail, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's where we're at. I'm kind of getting the impression that members are happy for this to go ahead along with those provisos. So I'm happy to propose from the chair that we accept with those provisos that this goes to be reviewed by the conservation officer, by the climate change officer, and if both are happy, then we're happy. Is that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Morwood.
I've just been trying to see whether it said, I could decide whether it was double glazed from their plans, but I can't.
I don't believe it is, but I think I agree with you. I read it, energy efficient, so that does say proper glazing that's I don't know, lined or whatever it is, but yeah, okay. So we'll go to the vote on
Or
that.
potentially just better than having a hole in the wall.
Thank you. I love the technical skills we get here. Can I go to a vote, please? Thank you. Councillor Foden, you haven't voted, so I'll ask if you wanted to abstain on this one.
No, I am voting, yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
It's a hard day.
Thank
It's been a long
you.
day.
Okay, so that's passed. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next one, which is 2102 472, and it's 34 First Avenue. And this is a 2-storey rear extension, associated landscaping, including decking. It took me a while to work out where this was on the maps and the block plan, actually. I think, is that Second Avenue or is that a lane between the two? It's kind of,
It's
lane.
It's a
Yeah.
lane between the two.
They're very narrow.
So they've kind of got 2 access, yeah, okay. So what they're wanting is an extension, including the landscape, and particularly is the decking. You can see the decking with the steps at the back there, that's back front, it's quite hard to,
Flip back.
yeah. Point to note when I was reading through this one is the fact that South West Water want to particularly advise the householder and what have you, because the alterations are within 3 metres of the sewer. So it might be that the design for the decking will have to be looked at, because that's the area that they have a concern. But that is just an advice and just something to note from that point of view. I'm sure members have already seen that as well. Any comments from members on this one at all?
It certainly fills up the site.
I think I'd have no objection.
I think it's quite a minimal extension, as it were. It's kind of rounding out the square, as it were, if you know what I mean. And I think the comment from South West Water means to me that they're going to make sure that no harm's going to come of any other pipes, as it were, so it seems to be coming from that point of view, so I must admit, I mind it from the point of view of no objection. We've already had one member say that, so I'll see if there's any others.
I'll second that proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Moorhead. Okay. We will go to the vote if there's no other comments on this one. Are you happy to accept that no objection, seconded by Councillor Moorhead? Yeah? Thank you. Righty-ho. We now go on to 2102-589, 22A and 22B, Timoth Road. So this is all about external entrance stairs and balcony to 22B. The first floor apartment is 22B. Alterations to ground floor decking, replacement of existing windows, addition of entrance door, pair of patio doors. So we're splitting a house, and it's all about the access and the devil's in the detail from that point of view.
So I'm not quite sure I know exactly where this is.
Well, I'd quite like to know where 28 Timoth Road is in the
Is he
nice
suggesting
this
one?
one.
Shall
Is he
I
suggesting?
attempt, Chairman, to do two lots?
Yeah, impress us, Andrew.
Well, let's go to Parish Online.
Okay.
He says,
CX7OJE, if you need a postcode for it.
there it is.
Oh, I've not found this mapping system before.
Ah.
And there we see 28, which is actually on
So
the
it's
actual Timoth Road.
opposite Wingwood Lane almost,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And
Chairman?
downhill a bit, is that?
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting.
So the objector, 28 Timoth Road, it mentions loss of privacy and overlooking. And that's with regards to the balcony and the entrance stairs.
Yeah, there is quite a slope from there.
There is,
down-
yeah.
down to the road.
There is. And you can see the, where's the before and after? Oh, that's existing, yeah. There we go.
It's quite substantial, isn't it?
It is, and I think the stairs obviously does go, yeah. Stairs, you can
I
see
don't
where
know why
that
they
goes.
need all the decking really, if they're just dividing the house. I can see they need access. And putting stairs inside would take up room.
I think it's giving outside space to the, second part of the building from that point of view, I'm not sure.
There was a fair amount of land around it though, wasn't there? Which could be communal or.
I suppose there's various ways it could be
Existing
done.
stairs removed and floor
Yeah.
mat to create a new bedroom.
So that's the stairs there.
So hence why they've got to go on the outside. So the ground floor is one place and then it's having the access stairs on the outside to give someone their own front door, so to speak. Yeah.
I must say, I don't know what to make of this one. I looked at it quite a bit before. The state raised decking and have access ramp and stairs.
I think for me, it's about the, can we use the word topography? It's kind of late at night, I'm not sure. But it's, in a way, you would need to see, you need to see and make a judgment call on that. We don't know the area, I don't know the area that well. I haven't been had a chance to see it. I'm just thinking in terms of the objector from that point of view, the loss of privacy and overlooking. On paper, it's a conversion of a house in half, and it's the 2 apartments, which seems sizable enough and seems to work. And from that point of view, it's workable. It's about where the objection is, isn't it?
Looking at the bottom left, the west elevation, the single story there on the left, would that not have been a means of getting access to the top floor?
I'm not an architect, so I don't
No,
know.
I don't know.
Councillor Ridley, you had your hand raised.
I think I'm worried about the balconies. I don't think I'm worried about the house splitting into 2 so much, but the upstairs balcony is going to be slightly difficult. If you could flick back to that previous picture that we had,
So that's
not
existing.
that one, that's the one. And if you look at those 2, the section you've got above where the outside table is, where they're sitting doing whatever they're doing,
Yeah.
immediately above it is the decking at ground floor.
Yeah.
So you've got absolutely no privacy on either of those bits of decking.
And the bottom part of that building, if I remember, although it's kind of, is the reason that the gentleman at, I think it's a gentleman at number 28 in the road isn't happy about the privacy, because he's saying that that balcony is overlooking and gives him lots of privacy into his property.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
So I'm thinking that the design is inherently, not only for the neighbours, but also for the residents, lacking in privacy.
Councillor Moore.
I agree that making 2 units out of it is always a welcome idea, but I'm concerned that I don't know that site personally. I had great difficulty studying it on here because it's a very, very small scale information on the Timbridge website, and I would be much happier, and I don't know how or whether it's advisable, if there was a site meeting where more people would be able to look at it and come to a consensus. I think a few brains is better than 9 on this one.
So site meetings don't tend to happen. This is a delegated decision. So
Unless we bring it to committee.
you can force it by taking it to committee and then sort of suggest to them that you need to do a delegated a site meeting to actually look at it. I think I would consider raising an objection on the fact that the design doesn't take into account privacy either of the residents of the 2 flats or the neighbour.
Yeah.
Should the officer be minded to approve, I'd call it to committee and recommend a site visit.
That's great.
Yes, we've asked for that before, haven't we, with things?
I think
I
that covers
would
everything.
second that. I think that's a good decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good plan. Thank you. So we have a proposal in the second from Councillor Wood. Did you want to say something else as well?
No, I was voting it.
Yeah, okay, so we'll take that to the vote, please. Thank you. Have you got enough information down? It all seemed to happen at the last minute, didn't it? As usual. We'll give you a moment just to...
It's okay on the last word.
That's great. Right. Now we head to 2102635, Lammas Park House, 3 Priory Road, Dawlish.
Oh, we had this one a while ago, didn't we?
Really?
When it changed hands. About the garden.
It was the garden and wanting to have it lawfully attached to the main building. And I think, Councillor Moore, would recall your words, which were, as long as they don't put a building on there.
Words to that effect?
Yeah,
Yes.
I did think of that when I saw this application. But anyway, we have a unit of accommodation associated to the guest house.
One of the reasons, oh sorry,
Councillor Moore.
thank you Chair, one of the reasons given is that their guests don't bother to use the garden, they go down into the town. that to me isn't an adequate reason for losing green space with all the problems we've got these days with loss of habitat and loss of biodiversity and so forth. It's one of the few reasonable green spaces in that area. It's an old built-up area.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, I wouldn't give up.
I was quite heartened to see that they're having a heat pump, what is it called?
Air source heat pump?
Thank you. Yes.
And
Never
is
get
that
those
in-
the right way round. Yeah.
But was that in their proposed new building?
In the proposed new building, however, the objection
Yeah.
from Swiftprint, which is the building that's in front of it, you can see there at the bottom of the plan, is the fact that the access to his rear wall is not easy if they're going to build that close to it, and access to where the heat pump access as well. How he's wondering how that could happen. It's almost built against it, as it were. Councillor Morgan.
He also has concerns that they think that their building might be a cob wall, and that there would be extra strain from the building above it.
And I do take it that they, you know, the cedar cladding is attractive, and there's another property a few doors away in a similar kind of design, which is quite nice. It's in the actual building of Lamas Park House is very striking, isn't it? There you go, the photograph of it. So very much in contrast to that, but it is separated, it's across the road, and kind of sunk down in that garden, so where it goes down into the garden.
Nice, secluded, little bit of nature.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can see there the back of the Swift front.
Yeah. So you literally just got about a metre or so of the wall and roof. Councillor Ridley.
I would propose that that we object to this. It's overdevelopment, it's lack of privacy, it's inappropriate in the position, and it's undesirable in the street scene.
That'll do.
And if they want to pass it, we call it into committee.
Councillor Foden.
I would second Councillor Ridley's proposal also
Including
because
the call-in?
I object because it's a little oasis in the centre of town and an oasis for biodiversity.
I think when you started talking about oasis, I was just thinking and loss of biodiversity and habitat.
Which was my main concern.
Okay. Well, that's pretty comprehensive. Thank you. Any other comments before we go to the vote? We have a proposal and a seconder. So, any other comments? No? Okay, we'll go to the vote, please.
Thank you.
So, next item, 2102649, land adjacent to High Tour to Cliff Road. This is a new dwelling.
We've had it before.
We have. We have.
Some of them seem to come around regularly.
So it's the little lane, as it were, that comes off Timoth Road. Oh, yeah, Timoth Road. Right at the top of the hill. That's what it is at the moment. But it's quite a big plot, I must admit. Councillor Morwood.
Fortunately, quite a few of the trees have got TPOs on them. And they have acknowledged that there is an area around the tree where you can't excavate, you can sometimes dig by hand, so they are aware of that.
They are.
I like the way that it's, the bottom part is sunk down,
Yeah.
and although it's a very modern building, it is rather stylish, and it's in quite a good sized plot.
I agree with all of what you said, Councillor Morwood. I thought that as well. I was very pleasantly surprised. It is a sizable plot. They have considered the landscape and they have considered the trees around it.
And those same trees screen from the neighbours and will be there for some time because they're protected.
So are you comfortable with this proposal, Councillor Morwood?
Yes, I am. I see no reason to object.
Any other comments from Other members? Councillor Foden?
Thank you. I'm having problems opening the documents. I wonder with the design, is the roof covered in solar panels? I just wondered, because it is an interesting design.
I didn't see anything in here about planning, but we could also add that, couldn't we, that we would like to see
Yes. Yeah.
some nod
It
towards
seems a good position as well, doesn't it?
Yes.
towards more efficiency.
Yeah.
So if I remember rightly, one of the proposals for the cycle path is that it comes down off the Teignmouth Road, down Cliff Road, and then along the East Cliff Walk,
Yes,
and then along the back there, which is just round the corner from here.
it is. It doesn't pass in front of it, but
No, it's close to it, isn't it?
but there is already a drive that goes to the house along there anyway. There is already drive access that goes to those other houses before it and after it.
I'm wondering about the position on the cliff there, given its closeness to the very vulnerable cliffs underneath it. I haven't managed to see what it said in terms of drainage proposals.
I didn't note anything about that when I was looking through it, reading through it, absolutely. But that might be something that we could highlight. If we are minded to approve it, we would like that to be investigated.
I don't have any problems with it's an empty site that looks very clearly waiting for a house to go into it.
Yeah.
It would make sense to put one there. It's an interesting design. It's just the details of drainage and a suitable construction management plan, given the access to it.
They have got a geotechnical survey.
Councillor Foden?
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Wrigley. It is vital that a construction management plan is sorted and agreed before approval is given for this application, because as we know from a big problem that is happening right now in Dawlish on Longlands, the construction management plan wasn't part of the planning approval, and we are now suffering all the consequences. So I'd just like to add that comment. Thank you.
Okay.
I would commend that they have got a proper geophysical survey. It's on Breccia and it's in detail, so that's good. Not everybody bothers to do that.
No, I appreciate that.
It'll be a stunning house with stunning views from it's done.
I like the way that the bottom part is sunk,
Yes.
so that the overall height isn't so imposing as it might have been.
So there is a lot of thought there. It's just I don't know. I haven't found the drainage and the construction management plan aspects.
No, I can't see.
So where do we go with this, members? Are we minded to approve, or are we minded to ask for those solutions and those questions first, and not look to approve until we have those? Councillor Foden?
Can we recommend approval on that condition?
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of got to that point, I think, with our discussion, so thank you.
And for that to be written into the approval if it is given by Teambridge.
Okay, thank you.
There is a drainage.
So that's your
management
proposal.
plan.
Is there anyone happy to second that? Thank you, Councillor Wrigley.
What was it? Can I just ask what the wording was again? I lost track.
I'm hoping.
Recommend approval on the basis of adequate drainage plans being submitted, a suitable construction management plan being agreed before permission is granted, and the committee encourages the use of renewable energy, e.g. solar photovoltaic.
It seems a perfect start for
Good,
all,
good.
doesn't it?
Yes.
So when we mention adequate drainage plans, can we put in with due consideration to the location near the cliff? Because a typical plot in the middle of nowhere, adequate drainage plans are one thing, and they tend not to go beyond the boundary of the site when they think about adequate drainage plans.
Yeah.
basically we like the house, we just wanted them to be sure that they've done everything around it.
They do it right. They do it right. That's what we're asking them to do. Okay. So we have a proposer, we have a seconder. So can we go to the vote on that, please?
Thank you.
So let us now move on to number 17, Pinewood Close.
I don't know, I think that's
Same one again?
So this is 2102684, erection of a conservatory. You might have noticed this as you're driving past this road, this building, and why they paused with half the fencing up. It is south facing, and you can see that those doors are that's where the south facing windows, the kind of patio is. I think it's somebody has struck someone. Do you know that's the perfect spot for a conservatory? is all I would suggest. I don't know if it wasn't in the plans that we saw originally, so I can only think that's why we're looking at this now, members.
I must confess, as a building, I love the curved end to it. I think it looks really elegant, and I think the curved roof, every time I drive past it, I think, that looks really good.
It's a really nice kind of
They've-
welcome to Dawlish almost in a way,
They've
isn't
done
it?
it well,
Yes, yes.
but it's, I don't know about the conservatory on it. But I can't see any reason to refuse it.
It will be back up to its back fence. I walked round there, not recently, to see that. I was going down around the open space behind it, the green spaces.
But given the nearness of the road and all the rest of it, would you actually want to sit out in the garden there unless you were...
It does seem to be facing the wrong way for a conservative, really. But,
Yeah.
It is the south side of it, but you're
right,
right.
but there's all houses and so forth against it, and it's downhill as well. I know, sorry, down below the road.
But those aren't planning reasons to refuse it, really,
Oh,
are
no,
they?
no,
They're not. I must admit, I don't see an objection to this. I think I could just totally see the logic of it, and I think the road reasons make me think that this is a good solution for a sunny spot, if you will, from that point of view. Not that that's a planning reason either.
But I think you're right, and if you're proposing that, I second it.
I'm happy to propose from the chair, yeah, absolutely, thank you. Any other comments on this before we go on to the vote? I think we've kind of sorted that one, so we'll go to the vote, if that's okay. Thank you. Wow, we've saved the best till last, or should I say the largest till last. So our last item is 2102-674, major, Secmation Lane, 201 dwellings.
This is...
For open space, landscape, allotments and infrastructure. So this is an absolutely massive thing to come before us, as it were, in the scale of things.
Chair, I have a letter from a local resident who was slightly confused because of the speed of this coming before us, given the size of it.
Yeah.
Because it's been posted, 2 days ago?
Yeah.
It's now here in front of us.
Yeah.
And that, given the, I suspect it's just down to the fact that they could put it in for free after, if it was less than a year or something. And it's 2 days less than a year. So lack of planning on their part should not constitute an emergency on ours, but it clearly has done. So if I may read this out from the local resident, if I can read it, it's kind of small.
Okay.
Disappointed that Dawlish are discussing this so early as the web. I'll forward this to you, if I may. Disappointed that Dawlish are discussing this so early as the website is still uploading the files on the 6th of December, so had not had time to explore fully. This is Area 3 of the TDC plan for Area DA2 and DA6, which supposedly has an overall integrated strategy to deliver over 1,000 homes, so it should fit that strategic plan, as well as other TDC strategies. Again, we could argue about the requirement for new homes on a greenfield site, as are the vast majority of sites built over the last 10 years in Dawlish, but sadly that argument has already been lost, but leaving green spaces around these homes is essential. 1. The link road, Secmation Avenue, is planned to connect areas 2, 3, 4 and 5. The residents, schools, etc. in Sickmaiden Lane and Elm Grove Road must be protected from all vehicular access during the build, as they have already experienced years of dangerous traffic, including HGVs, so none should leave via the south end at Gatehouse Barnes. As Devon County Council is planning and delivering the Link Road and Area 4 near Sainsbury's Roundabout, this planned development can only be built when their access becomes available. They must not be allowed access via Area 2 at Gatehouse End, even if part of that link road becomes accessible first. 2. The level of affordable housing is still too low compared to the TDC planning expectation of 25%. The last figure was 10 affordable, so this is better, but still only 14%. This is too low as we know the need is huge for affordable homes. This must be increased to 25%. 3. As TDC is looking towards reducing CO2 emissions, has the requirement for insulation of these new homes be increased so that we have low energy use homes, reducing fuel bills and emissions? Otherwise we will carry on building poorly insulated homes. What boilers / heat pumps will be required? Repeating building inadequately insulated homes must stop now. 4. South West Water has raised concerns about the sewerage system having enough capacity to meet the extra demands. Our experience with South West Water, so this is a resident in Sickmaiden Lane, you might gathered. Our experience with South West Water is that every time a new housing estate is built, we suffer from sewage overflow problems. And for those that don't remember, they had 5 years worth of flooding sewage through their homes because of the building above that space. Where was I? Sorry, overflow problem. Although they have constructed extra storm capacity at the pumping station on the Exeter Road at the bottom of Sickmaiden Lane, that has not been tested with severe weather yet. We also know that they have maximised the outlet pumping capacity from the station up to Sandy Lane car park. We do not believe that there is any spare capacity and that another large investment is required, or some sewerage at present coming to Dawlish is diverted to reduce the demand on that pumping station. So again, for those who've forgotten, all of the sewage from that part of Dawlish and Cockwood comes along to the bottom of Sickmaiden Lane up to Sandy Lane, and there's pumped across to Teamer Gardens, where it joins the sewage that's coming in from this side of Dawlish, that goes down to the tanks underneath the Tux plot, and then is pumped up to Teamer Gardens. Sorry, I've lost my place. I'll just find we do not believe that any spare capacity and another large investment is required. The whole point of the local plan and DA2 was that a strategic plan would be developed for infrastructure developments to support the extra 1,000 homes in DA2. To date, this has not been addressed, and that must now happen to protect present residents of the danger of sewerage overflow. So far, TDC has failed in overseeing such infrastructure developments and must now address this, particularly in relation to sewage, and confront South West Water to ensure that it happens. Water drainage is a key issue, and all of this disturbance and extra houses raises the risk of flooding. This needs to be fully explored, and concerned that this is properly addressed. 6. Has the issue of bats and cell buntings been fully addressed, as this was highlighted previously by the RSPB? Yet again, an area with evidence of cell buntings is about to be destroyed, and yet no area has been provided for them as an alternative. Getting a sum of money for them is totally inadequate. New space is required, not pound notes. 7. When will the new primary school that has been identified be built? This has been set out by DCC Education. Again, to date, DA2 planning has failed to produce the infrastructure both in education and in health. And that's from Roger Anderson of Sickmaiden Lane. If I forward it to you, if that's appropriate. It's only come in at 15 minutes before the meeting, having alerted them to the fact that it was being discussed here today. Andrew.
Have some more.
I was just going to ask, have they sent this to Timbridge?
Not yet, but they will do so.
Because there's a lot of truth in that. As to the road going through, it's obvious that it shouldn't go ahead until there is a road from the first parcel through this out to the link road.
Absolutely, that's something we have to highlight again and agree with those comments, I think. You know, it's been a 6-year campaign to get that road built, to stop the lorries trundling past Elm Grove Road, past the schools and all the rest of it. And I think we've got to insist that the construction management plan says that no traffic shall enter from Gatehouse End.
And if I might add, Madam Chair, a couple of things. One is, I've lost track now of how many houses have been built there, because there were a number allocated to these 3 parcels. I would like to know that we're still within that total number with what's proposed here. And I certainly don't think that we should settle for 14% affordable. That's been one of the sticking points all along on this plot. And also, if you look at, which one is it now? Talking of flooding and floodplains. This is, oh dear, which document is it? Drainage plan.
This one.
Yeah, that's the one. It's already partly in a floodplain, and what they're talking about there is having to raise the cycle path and pedestrian path because of flooding. And we do know that South West Water are under some kind of strain, and that's exactly why they're trying to separate storm water from sewage water in existing parts of the town. Obviously, sooner or later it's going to be developed. There's no reason why we should let the other 2 sites either side be developed and not this one. But is this the right time, and is there enough in place?
I'm heartened to see that the affordable housing has increased from 5%, which was absolutely nowhere near where we wanted it, and it has gone to 14, but I agree with
But
you
that's
that...
still nothing.
Yeah, I
We're
agree with you.
desperately in need of
Yeah.
extra affordable houses, of course.
I am also very heartened to see that there are allotments with this as well.
I've been waiting to see these. I didn't know which part we were coming.
It's that long band there at the...
Yes.
Councillor Ridley.
Very pleased, again, the allotments look good.
Yes.
The amount of green space to the, whichever way that is, to the top end, looks nice.
Yeah.
The plans for the overflow water is laughable and somewhat sad. And the fact that this will go straight into Shuston Brook, which goes straight into the wildlife refuge area in the X, is of major concern.
Yeah.
Having seen this field, it is a swamp.
Yeah.
It's a bog, really is.
Yeah.
So the water treatment that they've got is questionable at best. So I would be extremely concerned that I'm not convinced that their water management is good enough. I'm not convinced that many of the concerns raised by the resident I fully agree with. This is an area that is already allocated. It's not going to be refused, but I think this plan can be improved. I think they need to pay more attention to the water, more attention to the wildlife and biodiversity, and more affordable housing. I'm sorry, you know. And the difficulty is this is going to be an expensive site to develop because it is a bog, and that's why we are unlikely to see the full affordable housing. I was slightly disturbed by the note that read, "We have already agreed 14% affordable housing with Timbridge planners." And if that is the case, then that is of concern. They've had pre-planning discussions with Timbridge
Discussions
planners.
is one thing, but approval is another.
I think it's moving it from 5% to 14% is where they've got. Whether that's the final figure, I don't know. But that I think is where what's been going on. It's been pushing that. Councillor Foden, be very patient.
Thank
Please go ahead.
you. So I'm pleased to see from one of the earlier pictures that you had up that they're retaining the ponds that are there.
Yeah.
But as Councillor Ridley has said, it is rather in a floodplain, and I think really the design of the houses, one of the earlier pictures that you had up, it looked like the houses were on stilts, and I think maybe that is a way of addressing the issue. If they are going to be building there, why not think about, you know, as it was sure, you know, in years and decades to come with the climate emergency throughout the world, more and more houses are going to have to be built on sort of stilts.
Councillor Morgan.
That's what I recommend.
I think Councillor Ridley will tell me whether I'm correct or not, but there are sites around ex-gravel pits, Sibelco, where the houses are on places which are boggy, subject to flooding, and they're on what they call raft foundations. So we've got no indication as to whether these are. We've got no indication here as to whether there is a proper SUDS agreement in place. All we've got are these existing ponds.
There is some description of it as,
Yeah, there is a bit.
as suds and what do they call them?
Well, I can't read that
Buttons
one.
or something. So some of those there, these things
Those
here,
are bunkers.
these things here are all water overflow management, so they're trying to be the suds. But it's difficult because suds sort of works when you've got soakaways, and this ain't going to soak away. It's just going to sit there because it's so wet.
It's also the geography of the site. As you can see the blue lines going into the gullies, as it were, through the middle of the site. So.
I wonder if it's something to do with the substrata, because it sounds like it's clay, if it's all not going any further.
This is fundamentally part of the critical drainage area that takes all the water from the hills down to the.
But I mean, normally it would eventually percolate through, but it doesn't, so it's something to do with the actual soil structure.
And it's only a couple of feet above sea level.
Yeah.
It's really not. The water table in that area of town is really, really close to the surface. So that's the issue. One other issue, the black hatching is spaces where hedges will have to be removed. I couldn't see anywhere that hedges would be retained post-development. One of my bugbears is that they specify that hedges must be retained during development, which is fine, but like in Millen Way, they then don't specify how those hedges will be preserved post-development, and they sell them individually to the householders, who then don't realise, chop down the hedges and put up fencing. So there must be some form of protection for the hedges in terms of the conveyancing post-sale.
Okay. There's also some, I've just had a look at, just to see any updates, and there are some, obviously, objections, and they're from people that live in Dawlish, Stockton Hill, one of them, and they're talking about doctors and the amount of new population and the capacity of the doctors for these people who live here to be registered. We all know that we need new houses, but we need doctors. And the roads and the congestion. They're really concerned that that main arterial road that runs alongside this to the island at Sainsbury's is still going to be hammered from that point of view. So I'd raise that just to...
Just to add to that general comment, we've now got us another 800 that going up opposite Sainsbury's, and that also is going to affect the schools and employment and doctors and so forth. And then we've all got a consultation going on again now to increase housing again. I don't know how we're going to cope with all of this. But as Councillor Ridley said, you can't say you can't build there. It's already had outline. It's all part of the big plan from the last main consultation exercise.
So just 2 or 3 points if I may. The top comment up there, these fields are reserved for SUDs, so that gives us on the top right hand side of the screen there. So they are thinking SUDs, but we don't have a good enough
Plan.
design for it. It doesn't have outline planning. This is unusual. The other sites did go for outline planning first. This one has not. So this one has nothing whatsoever, but it is in the local plan. So it's a designated site within DA2 or DA6, and therefore it is assumed that it will go through in some form or another, but it does not have outline planning at the moment.
So this says me?
And the other what's the other thing that was, you were just saying, I lost, can't remember, lost it, sorry. There was a third thing.
The numbers of houses.
Oh, numbers of houses.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Unfortunately, in the previous local plan, as it was written and passed, each of these sites were defined with at least
Yes.
however many hundred houses, and so therefore there is no upper limit on what goes onto these sites.
Although there are recommended capacities as
No.
to so many per hectare.
Which is a
depending on
different
where-
matter altogether. But on these sites and how they build them,
Mm.
they can put however many they want. There's a lower limit, which is
Mm.
at least. There's not an upper limit in the local plan, which is the only guiding
It
document we've
used
got
to be
for.
about 70, I thought, but.
I don't know. But it
So-
depends. So
Yes,
it's problematic. It will go through ultimately.
Shouldn't it be an outline plan of this place at this time?
It's up to them. If
Where-
they choose to go, they originally did choose to go for a full planning. They were being unusual, and that they were going for a full planning application last time. And they set it all up in Ladies Mile and showed us it, and had everybody round and consulted and all the rest of it. Had some lovely bungalows on the hills and all that. But that all went awry, and this looks to me like it's a full application and not an outline application
Yeah.
again.
Oh, yes, it's major, it says.
You can see
So there's the
And
allotments,
it's
there's the
hardly
play
enough.
area, the green areas, which they can't build on because they're part of the floodplain.
one further question that we should log at this point, which is a question for us to address, which is, do we wish the town council to take on the management of those allotments? I would suggest the answer is probably yes, and we would want some payment as well to go with it.
Mm.
But if we don't say so at this point, it will go into the management company that is set up to run the rest of the green space within the what's it?
Thank you for mentioning that. I obviously have an interest to declare at that point because obviously I have an allotment elsewhere. So I wasn't going to really comment on that at all, but thank you. I think it's a valid point.
I think that we did bring this up long ago when this was on the table before, that we wanted it to be under the auspices of the council
Yeah.
and not necessarily just the people there.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it has to be more than that, because at the very least it should cater for all of the people in the various different developments on that side of town.
With so many, oh sorry, can I just ask if anybody knows, there's so many houses there, and bits of hedges and bits of land and all these ponds, they're going to have a management plan, aren't they?
They even have a bidding plan.
How
I
long
don't know
is-
if you've had a look at through all the
Yes.
documents.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
It's
But
in
how
place.
long is that for? Because I know about Nunning Way as well, and they were supposed to have a conservation place there with bird boxes and goodness knows what, and I don't think any of that ever really happened. And I know people have tried to drive drives through the hedge in the past, and it's been a battle to maintain it. But I also know that management plans can be extremely expensive and can cause problems for residents long term unless there's some kind of stipulation or regulation on them.
The way this works at the moment is that none of this land will pass into council property or council management. It will all be managed by a private company that is set up. Usually that then levies a service charge on each of the households within it. As Clark will testify, there are issues about this over at Heel Park, and different developers have done different things, and it's a bit of a nightmare. So I think you're right to raise this, because we've now got a situation where we've got 5 major developments all abutting each other that may well have different management companies,
Yeah.
and there are discussions at Teambridge as to how we might deal with that. So I think this is something we should also raise,
Yeah.
that the management company or the management of this land in perpetuity should be coordinated with its neighbouring pieces.
Yeah. So
And
you haven't
that-
got one side of the street with one set of rules and bills and another, yeah.
which is exactly what we've got in Hill Park. At least we have the guarantee that the road won't do a Carhay Way Berlin Wall,
Yes, yeah.
because it will be built by county before any of this stuff comes forward.
So where do we go?
Can we also ask for the provision of at least one post box? Or
Oh, yes!
possibly coordinated with the other neighbouring estates, so at least there are a few post boxes for people to post their Christmas cards without having to drive into the town centre.
Yeah.
And also to ensure that the road plan is wide enough for at least 2 cars to pass, plus parking space, plus for your refuse trucks to be able to turn around in.
That's why there is a bin plan from that point of view. Councillor Moore,
Some of the more recent estates around it, it's like going down Grand Canyon really. You've got 3-storey high buildings and a tiny road and very little in the way of parking, because I know, yes, if you're in a town or a city, you don't need a car. People still get them. What is like at times like Christmas in some of these places, I don't know, because it must be chock-a-block with cars on the pavements and arguments going on all over the place. I'm just looking on here to see whether I can see whether these places all have drives.
The picture we're looking at is slightly misleading, because the main road going through the avenue is specified to, if I remember rightly, it's 6 metres wide plus cycleway plus pavement on either side.
I think it's a pavement on one side now, looking if I remember seeing this, and a cycle path on the other side with pavement. Yeah,
So it's a substantially wider road
yeah,
with the tree lining along it as well, which is
yeah.
currently specified in the supplementary planning document for DA2. But that is the spec to which Devon will be building it, and we don't know yet because we didn't have the presentation yesterday about
Yes.
the link road, but my understanding is that the plans for that will be submitted on the 13th.
We get to see it on the 14th, but we can still comment.
Correct.
I think there is a separate cycle path going through as well, which I think is indicated by that.
Where that floodplain was,
Yeah.
where it's got to be elevated, yes.
Yeah, that's it there, isn't it?
An aqua cycle path.
Yes. Aquaplaning.
Hopefully not aquaplaning.
Yeah, but it's going to, I want to know where it goes to as well, and I think that's another point you were saying from the point of view,
Just
where is
joins
it
the
joining
road.
from and to? And, yeah,
Just goes onto the road.
Yeah. so it'd be really nice if there is a link with the other estates, or is it just going to go to a dead end and you come back?
There
Because
it is, it goes down there.
yeah.
Well, it should go to and from somewhere,
Yes,
shouldn't it?
yeah.
Unless some of these pavements are going to be dual cycle and pedestrian.
It's like a cycle path to nowhere, isn't
There's
it?
nothing
No,
I
but
can
anyway,
tell.
I think it's really difficult to kind of make judgment calls when there's so much to take in, and so many parts of this picture puzzle, because let's face it, there are other parts of this that are going to be coming in. It's very difficult to kind of make decisions. I think all we can do really is, I think, make a list. I know you've been writing notes, to give that kind of feedback from that point of view, and make our comments known. I think it's quite overwhelming from that point of view, isn't it? But by doing that, we're reflecting the comments that are made and that are on the website already, the letter from the gentleman and the residents, and
The feeling.
and I think we're already kind of making those kind of comments well made anyway.
Might I also make a recommendation that, because there is an assumption but no rule that major applications go to committee. It is not the fact that all major applications necessarily go to committee, that we wish to ensure that this does go to committee, and we call it in should they be minded to approve.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, where are we with the proposal? Is that a proposal from you, Councillor Richardson?
I would propose that
You started, so I'd ask him to finish.
I would propose that we object on the basis of so many open questions, with information yet to be provided, particularly relating to water, sewage, traffic,
Management plans, drainage.
biodiversity.
Pen's running out.
And
Thank you.
We've worn out a pen.
We have.
we've worn out the clerk.
Yes, I think we have.
And there are aspects that are good, but there's a lot more questions that need to be answered before this is ready to.
The devil's in the detail, isn't it? Councillor Morwood.
It just occurred to me as well, we're talking about planting trees. They're talking about retaining a certain amount of hedge. Is there anywhere where they're saying that they're going to plant trees because that will help with the water absorption?
Yes, there is.
Community orchard is here.
There's a community, that's another
Yes,
reason.
but that's a small thing, and that will need managing. They're dreadful things to try.
Well, I think looking at the plan there and the amount of trees that are on the plan, I think you can see there are quite a few trees.
But looking at the amount of green space, there's a lot of scope for a lot more.
Yeah.
And they would certainly help to take up some of the groundwater.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, we have a proposal. Is anyone happy to second Councillor
Can
Ridley's?
we hear the list, please?
I think it's all of the above, I think, is it can be shortened to be honest with you. All the things that we discussed, you've been writing down. We've got 2 sides of A4 at the moment, we've got the notes,
okay.
but yeah, affordable housing.
Agriculture,
25% on 14. Yeah. I know we kind of, yeah.
So many unanswered questions, aren't they?
And some of the basic ones that won't even be even thought about are the how the hedges are retained into the future and how the management of this area works with other areas.
That's the thing that really concerns me with what's happened in the past, let's face it, with the two roads that didn't meet.
You know, already, if I've got my geography right, this is this bit? Are we there yet? I'm not quite sure.
No, that's
Is this where Juniper Road is? Is that still further up? I think that may be further up yet. It's hard to tell. It's hard to. I'm not sure whether that's. So
that's that blue bit.
that's that blue bit there. So no, that's not, is it?
No, it isn't, no. Councillor Morwood.
Just wondering where we're going to put the next SANGs to cope with all of this.
The sad thing is that the SANGs, the expansion to Barton Surgery, the expansion to Westcliff School, has all been done already in advance of these things. So when people say that there's no space in the doctors, there's no space in we should have had those facilities already expanded beyond current local need to cater for the additional 1,000 houses going in here.
And not closing Dawlish Water.
And that's not really been satisfactory so far as I can work out. So I can't see that the arguments for more medical facilities and schools coming out of this will be valid, because they'll say it's already been done.
Could I just ask something? I'm sure Councillor Ely can tell me. Just gone through my mind there, isn't it? What were we talking about? I reminded you last
Hospitals
time.
and,
Hospitals and so forth, yes.
and school places.
Yes,
Doctors' places,
and
hospital
things
places.
like Red Rock, which was built purely for technical training. And there's more or less dismantled and is used for other purposes now. And we've not kept up, never mind
No.
gone ahead.
No, it's lack of a master plan, but then that's the way the system
And
currently works.
what I wondered was, some of these management plans, they have a limited period, don't they?
Manage-
10 years or something like that?
No, the green space that is not directly owned by individuals is owned by a management company. There isn't so much a management plan per se as a management company that has an independent existence
Yeah.
and has money through service charges that it raises on the individual houses. The clerk could probably enlighten us from his experience at Hill Park.
I've spoken to some of them up round Buttercup Walk when they were out inspecting it there. And it just concerned me, is this in perpetuity? And then what happens if the one management company goes out of business? What control is there that the same standards are going to be maintained by the next one? And when I was talking to these particular people, they were talking about one extra bin on the play park and they were going to levy another £10 per house.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. Sorry.
However, we have a proposal to object with all of the items we have before us. We have a seconder, I believe, to that item. I think we've spent a lot of time. There's a lot of things to be said on this, but I am conscious of the fact that we can't stay here all night. So if we've settled where we are with it, I think we've kind of rounded out we've covered a lot of things with this. We've got a proposal, we've got a seconder, so I think we'll take a vote if anyone's happy with that. And I think you can make the call in as well as part of
Yes.
that. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Yes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So that is our last item. So it's